Well, I'm back again, back with one final video before Christmas, more than likely. And before the sun gets bright, I would like to make a video because that way I won't be as much of a silhouette and my light will illuminate my face so that you can see how beautifully white I am. And unfortunately, my neighbors have to bathe all the time. And what I'd like to talk about today, well, other than Christmas and the unfortunately hot weather we've been having, which doesn't make it feel like Christmas, I also want to talk about how this necklace, it looks just like an ordinary Mardi Gras necklace, but it was actually thrown from a Christmas parade. You see, around here, since they don't do as much for Mardi Gras, they will often combine Christmas. You know, they will have something that's technically Christmas themed, but it has more of a Mardi Gras feel to it, so to speak. Like, you would not believe the Cajun influence in Texas and the Texan influence in Louisiana. You know, one time was the funniest thing. There was a Texas Roadhouse in Lafayette, Louisiana. I thought to myself, now why don't they call it the Louisiana Roadhouse? You know, it's the funniest thing in the world. A Texas Roadhouse with the American flag and the Louisiana flag instead of the Texas flag. But that's the way it is down here. You know, they seem not to really care whether they're in Texas or Louisiana. They have way too much spicy Cajun food here, and they have a lot of Texan things over there. So anyway, hopefully very soon I will no longer be here in this apartment and I'll have one last shower, since I'm not taking baths anymore, and I've explained why. Another thing I would like to say is I bought some of this Christmas ale, I think. Yeah, I went to the store and I honestly thought this was ginger ale with a pretty Christmas design on the front. Well, little did I know that it's alcoholic. Okay, may not be really strong alcohol, but we'll see. So perhaps I'll get a buzz for Christmas. And unfortunately, I wasn't carded this time. Like you would think they would make me prove with my driver's license that I'm over 21, but for some reason they didn't. So that kind of makes me feel bad. But anyway, what I'd like to talk about real quickly is something that I've learned. You know, I have the hardest time in the world throwing away garbage, so to speak. I use something and then I look at the empty container and I think, now what could I do with this? You know, it's just so hard to just throw it in the trash. And, you know, that's how you become a hoarder, is by keeping things you don't really need and may never use. Okay? So I look at things like this, which is yet another Barbie doll I should have never bought. And I kept her in the package for years. And one thing I've discovered, I'll title this video a drawing tip. You can take something like this, okay? One of the things, you know, I don't share a lot of my artwork on here, you know, for the simple reason I get enough criticism for my videos that I don't need to have my artwork being criticized or made fun of. And I'm sure it might offend some people for various reasons. But one thing I've always liked to do is draw, okay? And something about the holidays gets me into drawing more than usual. If there's no other time of year when I draw, it's around Christmas on into January. Just something about it makes me want to draw in color. And basically, something like this. I know this doesn't seem very useful, but I've always, you know, I like to put forth as little effort as possible when I draw. You know, and I got criticized in high school by art teachers who said that my drawing style was very juvenile. Like when I was younger, okay, the teachers were just totally in awe by the way I drew things. You know, I had such a mature hand. You know, I drew like a kid who was much older than I actually was. You know, my real chronological age and grade level. Like, and part of that has to do with the fact that I did start kindergarten late. You know, I was 6.5 instead of 5.5 when I started kindergarten, and as a result, you know, when I was a first grader, I wasn't a 6-year-old, but a 7-year-old. And, you know, people just thought I was kind of big for my age. And so when I would draw, they were so impressed, like the way I drew Ariel had everybody in my class, just totally blown away by how much she looked like the Disney character in The Little Mermaid. And they were impressed by my art skills because I drew like I was older than my actual age. And part of it is because I was a year older and because I just have some natural talent. I just have always had an artistic flair. I enjoy making things with my hands. And so I basically enjoyed art class all throughout school. And in junior high, I took art as an alternative to something like choir, where they would make you wear a dress if you were a girl, and the boys got to wear some kind of a suit, or I wouldn't say a tuxedo, but whatever the standard outfit was for guys, and it really made me angry because, the girls were made to wear a long black dress, whether it was hot, cold, or in between, It could be in the 30s that night, and they would still expect the girls to get up there and perform in a dress. And that just infuriated me. It's like, why has no one ever challenged this? People will challenge, whether or not you have to live as the sex that you were born into, but yet no one ever challenges ideas like that females or female-identified people can be forced to wear something so impractical as a dress in December. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it can be unseasonably warm like today, or it can be very cold. It fluctuates, especially in Texas. So it really made me mad, that they could just require this of all the girls, no matter how they felt about it or what they look like in a dress. They could just force them to wear a dress. And so I took art classes and other classes that you could take, one of them being home ec. I pretended that it was my mom that wanted me to take home ec as opposed to shop class, but the reality is that I wanted home ec because my lifelong dream has always been to make doll clothes and learn how to sew and make things, in case they're not available at the store. And I've just always been fascinated by things that you learn in home ec because it's sort of like an extension of art with me. It's another form of art. And no, I don't like shop class. No, I don't want to use power tools. No, I don't want to cut my beautiful fingers off. But I just pretended it was my mom who felt that way. And that worked. It kind of preserved my masculinity, so to speak, my masculine identity that I felt I had to embrace in order to get out of wearing dresses, despite the fact that they're totally impractical for December and January. So anyway, one thing about my artwork, though, is that I kind of stagnated. After about, I want to say sometime in junior high, maybe the 7th grade, because that's when I stopped growing taller, okay? I achieved my final height somewhere around the age of 14, that's how old I turned after I left 7th grade. So my body hasn't really grown or changed that much since then. And I feel like my artwork or my art skills kind of stagnated around that time, like in my early teens. And so in junior high, I was still pretty good. I was making straight hundreds in art. It was an easy A. But then as I got into high school, I started out okay, but then I actually started to have to try hard to make an A. I actually got B's in high school art classes for the simple reason that my teachers thought my art skills were not progressing in a more adult way, so to speak. And that's how I got obsessed with the Rugrats, was because my art skills were kind of stagnating around that time that I got obsessed with them. And I saw them as just an easy thing I could draw from memory and impress my little sister and her little friends. And I just watched them so much that I couldn't help but draw them all the time. So that kind of kept fueling the obsession. And that's how I became obsessed with Rugrats and similar cartoons, because they were a lot easier to draw than a real person. So as I got older, I got criticism and it kind of discouraged me from taking art in college. I got a lot of criticism about how my artwork looked more like a coloring book. You know, I looked like I was coloring in a coloring book. And, you know, they just really didn't like the way I wasn't progressing. You know, like a lot of the male students, you know, it wasn't photorealistic enough. You know, like my boy cousin that's close to my age, he would draw things and he would work on the same superhero, which personally I don't understand. You know, I do not understand the male fascination with superheroes and muscle men, because I am a woman and that does not appeal to me whatsoever. So why would a heterosexual male be so fascinated with muscles and masculinity? You know what I'm saying? Aren't they supposed to like girls and women? I mean, really. And so he would spend days working on the same superhero, and he would put so much detail into it that it would have so much depth. It was almost like a photograph made into a sketch. But I just never cared to have my artwork reach that level. I just never really cared. Because you know what? No matter how much time you spend on it, no matter how much effort you put into it, it will be no less flammable in a house fire. I mean, really. Will it be any less flammable in a house fire because you spent days on it as opposed to a few minutes? Will it be any less likely to be destroyed in a flood or a hurricane? You know what I'm saying? Will it be waterproof in case you get flooded? No, it won't. Okay. So basically, you know, I always drew these pictures. See, for me, it was a hobby. It was never something that I intended to do in a professional way. You know, my mom would criticize my art and, you know, say it was controversial and, you know, I shouldn't draw things that are this, that, and the other because, you know, you could make money off of your art, but nobody's going to pay you if you draw something that offends them. And I'm like, since when am I selling this art? You know what I'm saying? I'd rather not create it in the first place than to have to go through the heartbreak of creating something and then selling it. You know what I'm saying? I could never do that. You know, I could never put so much of myself into something and then sell it. Okay? And that's the problem I'm having with all these dolls that I've customized. And so anyway, I'd like to talk about some tips that I've learned, you know, because one of the problems is that as I got older, I figured out how to cheat. You know, I didn't get better at actually drawing things. I just learned better ways to cheat and not get caught. And I would like trace things. I've always been a big fan of tracing, where you superimpose an image. You know, you sketch it onto a piece of notebook paper that doesn't really matter. And that's where you get all your erasing done. And, you know, it's like a rough sketch. And then on the back of that piece of paper, you scribble all over the spot where the image appears. And then you superimpose it onto the final sheet of paper. And then you trace it, you know, with all that graphite on the other side. And then you take that image that's now lightly drawn and you perfect it with your pencil, like as if you're drawing it for the first time, and then you color it in. And now it doesn't have all those erasures, you know, it doesn't have all those mistakes. And so I just got really good at cheating, so to speak. I would get the computer involved in it. I would print things. And now with iPhones and laptops and, you know, portable devices, it's even easier because you don't even have to print it out. And so, you know, I kind of stopped drawing. Like in my 20s, I pretty much didn't draw whatsoever because I wasn't in art classes and I was tired of all the criticism. And as a teenager, I kind of went from actually drawing things to just leaving it on the computer because I always had this fear in my mind that every one of my drawings could possibly be torn up by my mom and thrown away if she found them when she was in a bad mood and didn't like them, because she had always done that all my life. She would go through my drawings and just tear up the ones she didn't like and throw them away. So you think I was going to put a lot of effort into something that might just get thrown away by my mom or maybe even myself later on when I got over the obsession that motivated me to draw it? really. So anyway, one tip that I found, I'm finally gonna reveal what it is. You take something like this, because drawing with your iPhone, you know, the phone wants to move the image if you accidentally touch the screen. Well, you put your phone in this, and then you put the sheet of paper on top of this, and hopefully it projects it through this, and you can sketch it. And that way you don't even have to print anything. You don't need another sheet of paper to transfer it. You don't really need anything. You just draw it like that, and there it is. So, you know, I wish there were better ways to cheat, so to speak. You know, websites that would give you tips on how to cheat, because I really don't like to put a whole lot of effort, as I've stated before. And yes, I realize I'm not going to get any better, but I don't really care. You know, I'm at the point in my life where I'm not going to get any better. My brain is just not capable of improving that much in that area. What you see is what you get as far as my artwork. So yeah, I like to draw, but I don't really like to share it with other people, and I certainly would not try to make money off of my artwork or do it in a professional way. I'm very shy about it, just like singing. You know, I don't like to sing in front of people, but I can sing. So yeah, I just wanted to say that, and Merry Christmas. If I don't make any more videos, hopefully I'll be able to make some moon videos, but probably not much more than that for the rest of the year.